Good morning to you, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements, here in Los Angeles, California, United States of America, March 31st, 2021. I hope you're well today. I am happy to announce that today I will begin a new series of daily talks based upon my new book titled Extinction X-Rated. It is now for sale worldwide on Amazon. It will go to other online retailers as well over the coming days and weeks. I will continue to interweave in this series of talks the intimate details of my beloved country of Burma. I will continue to talk and to illuminate the issues that I see in the media and through friends informing me on the ground of what's going on there. I will continue to bring the news and my particular humble insights into Burma's civil disobedience movement to the world and those people who follow me here on social media. May I encourage you to be a force multiplier. Share these videos, please. We have access, we have power, we are digital activists, we are force multipliers. Without us, dictatorship, authoritarianism rules. Today's sharing, the first in a series of talks through April. The key theme, I'm going to take my time, the key theme of my new book, Extinction X-Rated, authoritarianism versus freedom. Tyranny versus democracy. Denigration versus the dream. All the dualities found in the dyad of good and evil. Moha in the Pali Buddhist language, delusion, and the radiance of wisdom, panya, the luminosity of mumuti, freedom. Okay. There's so many angles to this, and I'm just going to really take my time. May I invite you, please sit back, hang with me, and let's go on this journey together of exploring more of the psychological, existential, emotional, mindfully intelligent arteries, if you will, the DNA, the ecosystem of this dyad that we're born into as human beings, the interplay of good and evil, heaven and hell, right and wrong, ethical wisdom, and the denigration of the human spirit, environmental spirit, through rage, anger, and violence. Burma today is undergoing the tyranny, the assault of a military organization that has turned into a terrorist group. They're motivated, seemingly, by their actions, their words and speech, by nothing short of evil. Stating the obvious could never be stated enough. In Burma and all throughout time and history, we see men, and in some cases women too, mercilessly slaughter, kill, tyrannize, torture, rape, belittle, behead, burn to death, crucify, in the name of their ideology, in the name of their dogma, in the name of their ignorance, in the name of their evil. Call it by different ethnicities, countries, languages, times, epochs, whatever. Today in Burma we see a vivid display of evil, unconscionable acts of assassination, murder, torture. And the world is poised today in the United Nations Emergency Security Council meeting. 15 member nations. I'm not sure if they're all men or in some cases women sitting around a round table talking about how to respond to the evil in a country about 10,000 miles from New York. What an epic biblical situation, presenting the case of how evil and how dark is it versus the mandate in 2005 by the United Nations, the right to protect principle. I want to present before you, I can imagine how these people are talking, initiated by the honorable representative from the UK, bringing this emergency meeting. I want to present to you in vivid detail the dimensions of the evil that's happened over the course of the last 70 years, more specifically ever since we had this thing called the military coup on February 1, 2021. Over 2 months now of unremitting evil. I'd like to present that to you, good folks at the emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. I'd like to show you videos of people, boys and girls, with their heads blown off, faces tortured and disfigured. I'd like to bring before you testimonies of living political prisoners who've been mercilessly raped and belittled and died. And here is their ghost speaking before you. I would like to beg of you, 15 members, to embody the timeless principle of empathy, of compassion, to enter the mind and body of the family, the people, those persecuted, the 54 million people of Burma, undergoing evil as we sit here wondering what we'll have for lunch. China, you specifically, we know that you will veto anything that resembles compassion, empathy, and we know that. We know that. The world is anticipating your reticence to step up in dignity and in conscience. I'm not going to belittle you, China, for the ongoing genocide of the Muslim Uyghurs, the harvesting of their body parts and organs to be sold to other people around the world. I'm not going to talk to you about the forced sterilization program of forced abortions on women all the way up to 9 months. We're not going to talk about the decimation of the Tibetan plateau and the Tibetan people. We're not going to talk about the absolute crucifixion, decimation of the democracy movement in Hong Kong. We're not going to talk about that firewall that you have around 1.4 billion people in your country to prevent them from hearing the truth of reality. Distortions, propaganda, misinformation. We're not going to even bring up the CCP virus that originated obviously in the city of Wuhan. And we've got the American TV evangelical Dr. Fauci, the con man who under President Obama outlawed bioweapons and gain of function, trying to increase the lethality of a virus to then potentially protect us humans from it. How did this particular virus get into the gene pool of the globe? It's really interesting to me that Dr. TV evangelical Fauci, in fact, could be absolutely clearly traced to financially, scientifically being engaged with the very bioweapon lab in Wuhan. He can be traced to that. And here we hold him around the world primarily as some kind of medical savior. To me, I point this out not as conspiratorial, but in the world of misinformation and propaganda, dictatorship, tyranny, and totalitarianism and authoritarianism isn't just in China, isn't just in Burma, isn't just in Russia, isn't just as 2, 3, or 4 members around this Security Council meeting today. It's in the very institutions of our democracies. It's in the mind of many billions of people worldwide. The totalitarian gene, the dictatorial meme, the states of consciousness that when ununderstood, related to, manifest human beings to do the unspeakable. In presenting this series based upon my new book, Extinction X-Rated, I wrote a book for me that is the most truthful expression of my life and my feelings. A no holds barred, absolutely no holds barred dive into the most creative, satirical, darkly comedic, at times wickedly satirical, without a doubt at times, if you understand the term gallows humor, bringing some form of humor. You may not laugh at the outrageousness of the human being, the species of you and me, what we've done in the name of truth and freedom and God and Jesus and Allah and life. How do we enter the collective consciousness and obliterate the propensity to kill, to rape, and to torture? That was my goal. For 7 months, I sat in the room that I'm speaking with you in today and tried to go as deep in as possible. The title, Extinction X-Rated. Obviously, those who study climate science understand that we're undergoing at the moment the 6th mass human-generated extinction. All 8 billion of us, in some way or another, more or less, have our foot pedal on the denial in this fetishizing of consumerism. More, this, that, not this, I want that. And we live in this blind, often addiction, motivated by greed and pride and comfort and privilege and profit. We're all victims of these states of consciousness. And we find ourselves here at the precipice that the great environmentalist in Canada, Dr. David Suzuki, says that we are like people in a car headed towards the brick wall of human annihilation, extinction. What a graphic image. We're in a car careening towards a brick wall of human-generated. Someone's driving the car with their foot on the pedal, and he says we're in the car arguing over where to sit. Take it further. We're arguing over what to play on the radio. We're all meditating, watching our breath. We're all chanting, Om Namah Shivaya. Whatever we're doing in our respective religion, our truth. Someone's reading on their Kindle in the back seat. But we're all in the car. We're on the planet Earth, the automobile, headed towards the brick wall of a mass extinction, mass death of humans and non-humans based upon you and me and our 8 billion brothers and sisters. And by and large, we're wondering, should we wear 1 mask or 2 masks, or is this entire pandemic a Trojan horse for a new form of global authoritarianism? The warning signs are evident. I want to spend time this month in April in these sharings every morning here at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, based upon my new book, Extinction X-Rated. Don't buy it if you are easily offended. It is explicit. It's in your face. It's highly pixelated with regard to sexuality, to violence, to the reality of life as we know it. I wanted to pull out every possible stop to do my humble little part to prevent the 6th mass extinction, if it's even humanly possible, and to participate in what I would call my war on authoritarianism, my war on dictatorship, my war on tyranny. The book is anti-porn. It's about anti-violence. It's absolutely against the Game of Thrones. I am part of the belief that violence is an aberration to the human experience, to the planet, to the cosmos. I stand in alignment as a son of the Buddha who spoke directly to the core of the issue. He called it kilesa. There are delusions within the consciousness of mind and being. You can identify these states of mind. You can identify these states of mind. You can turn from the fixation to hallucination and phantasm. And you can begin to see through your own mindful intelligence, to state the obvious to those of you who study mindfulness. You can begin to see the characteristics, the manifestations, the functions of states of mind. SOMs, the religion of the cosmos, of infinity. Meditation, for those of you who are really curious, the core of this book, Extinction X-Rated, is about the study of states of mind through the storytelling of good and evil, of right and wrong, and the theme of this first talk, authoritarianism versus tyranny, that is so explicitly being played out in Burma today, in China today, and much more disguised in democratic countries like America, Canada, Germany, Italy, Spain, England, America, Australia. So it's also a deep dive into the study of propaganda, misinformation, mind control, the manufacturing of consent, as Noam Chomsky talked about in one of his more famous books, The Manufacturing of Consent, Mind Control in Democratic Societies. And it really plays with this deeper discernment, and I think many of you are aware of this, the deeper discernment of what it means to discern from the edge of what's an adopted belief that really is not rooted in truth or freedom or dignity or ethical wisdom, and a truth that you impose upon that a false label called denial, called misunderstanding, called the hallucination of one's own mind. And those of you who've studied meditation, you can begin to see how many false images we have about life and about oneself. Pause. We've all heard today, and we all are aware today, I think to greater or lesser extent, that freedom is under assault. What's happening in Burma, I feel, is happening worldwide. I'm not going to go down the conspiratorial rabbit hole, but our freedoms have been remarkably cut back. For years, all of us could fly and travel, walk and talk freely. Now, the idea of the weaponization of information, the weaponization of the virus, now there's talk of a vaccine passport, the possibility of being tracked by various codes inside the body and on iPhones or smartphones to do this or that. The isolation, the tracking, the surveillance is all up in our ear and in our face today. And the warning signs are clear. And to me, this type of individual, societal, national, and global control is of a deep worry. I have a terror of being confined, manipulated. I have an absolute abhorrence to being lied to. And the whole edge between authority and freedom is at play, I think, in our lifetime right now. Jump way back. Was it May 10th, 1933? It's a rare footnote that anyone even bring it up. What was May 10th, 1933? The great burning of books in Berlin. May 10th, 1933. University students zealously, joyously collected, I think up 25,000 books that were considered un-German, decidedly Jewish, unpatriotic, degenerate. And 25,000 books were burned. Was it in the Opera Square of Berlin that night? Was it Joseph Goebbels who spoke to nearly 40,000 people gathered? to purge from society un-German ideas and values, to uphold the moral rightness, the emergence of white supremacist rightness. It's an unthinkable act that burning took place in 33 different university towns and cities throughout Germany. Books by the Nobel laureate Thomas Mann, a book about anti-fascism. No pride intended. I expect my book, Extinction X-Rated, to be banned, to be censored, to be burned, and for me to be hated, reviled, and canceled. Do I expect it? Yes. When you speak the truth and you confront society, as it's been said by many, including Aldous Huxley, you will be hated. What motivated these university students, an entire sophisticated country, to burn books that illuminated the radiance of freedom of thought, of speech, and action? Why in Burma today is a genocidal terrorist organization shooting and assassinating those boys and girls, nuns and monks, men and women, who simply want to write their mind, to sing their song, to move in a way that expresses their interior liberty? Why is that a threat that needs to be tortured? Good and evil, right and wrong, heaven and hell. Welcome to the deepest recesses of spirituality and psychology and religion and existentialism. Will we ever figure out what it means to cohabitate by birth with these diabolical forces inherent within the human psyche and learn how to mindfully and spiritually and emotionally and psychologically, intelligently live with them, but not stand in lockstep with them? Why is that so difficult for the human spirit? And why is freedom such a threat that good men and women turn from their love of freedom, of family, of democracy, and in the true meaning of moral integrity, and begin to live in the tyranny of the propaganda of disguised forms of authoritarianism, dictatorship, totalitarianism? The warning signs are here. The greatest threat to freedom on our planet is the Chinese communist dictator Xi Jinping. And Ming Online in Burma is behaving exactly like the genocidal, nuclear-armed dictator Xi Jinping. Ming Online in Burma is acting identical to the earliest stages of Adolf Hitler. Xi Jinping is acting identical to a terrorist, a malignant dictator, and a genocidal, totalitarian, evil, maniacal man. The warning signs are here. Is that possible? There could be complicity and collusion in America, in England, in Canada, in Australia. The tapestry of the infrastructure of politics, of social, health, information, media. Trace back so much of the firewall in China that not protects, that keeps freedom from the people of China. Manufactured, built, and sustained by the oligarchs in my own country, here in the state of California, in Silicon Valley. Global totalitarianism, for me, is the key theme of my book, Extinction X-Rated. It bursts up in China. It bursts up in Burma. And if we're not really, really vigilant today, And I really feel that we're at the cusp of the visibility of the reinvention of the book burning in Germany. Call it cancellation culture, deplatforming, call it the censoring of books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, Google. Think about the cancellation of an entire president on Twitter, on Facebook. Think of book burnings in Berlin. Thomas Mann, Helen Keller, Hemingway, a United States president. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm looking at the principles of propaganda, misinformation, totalitarianism, and the potential of global totalitarianism. Is the pandemic a Trojan horse for the emergence of global oppressive totalitarian control? Vaccine passports? The mandatory use of vaccines? The whole issue, which I'm going to get into, which the book explores, transhumanism, the deep interplay of artificial intelligence with genetic research and the manipulation of the anatomical DNA of the human being, life itself, with artificial intelligence that supersedes the mind of the individual, you and me. Cyborgian, we've heard the phrase. It's almost sci-fi, but it's not. Everything is at play today. Burma is an example of an eruption of a totalitarian bubble in a country 10,000 miles from California. But it's a symptom of a global problem right now that is on the loose, very much like May 10th, 1933 in Berlin, Germany. The book burnings, cancellation culture, censorship. Look at how many titles are being taken down. Look at how many book contracts are being broken. Look at people being deplatformed on social media platforms every day now by the thousands. Look at the right and wrong, the black and white. Where is civil discourse? Where is there the love of freedom of speech? Freedom of mind that we can, as you know so well, but do we practice it? Freedom is the love of diversity. That you and I disagree is that we bond in the love of freedom over having to agree. But in Burma today or in China today, there is a truth, and it belongs to the dictator. And if you don't like it, we will burn you, cancel you. And in Burma today, they are assassinating freedom. Not boys and girls alone. They are shooting for the head of democracy. They're shooting at the head of freedom. They're shooting at the head of freedom of thought. Don't write your book. Don't sing your song. Don't speak your mind. That to me is a worry, a warning sign across the global landscape. Okay. Let me talk a little bit before I end today. I just wanted to introduce this new series and encourage everyone who's been following me, who's from Burma or Burmese, in the country, around the world. I will continue to speak up for your people, the 135 different ethnicities in Burma, every day. I'm going to also expand my understanding and my expression of freedom and tyranny, right and wrong, good and evil, democracy and dictatorship through a broader filter, a global filter, and begin to illuminate elements that I've written about for the last 7 months, which is the culmination of 30 years of research. All my books are combined into this new book, Extinction X-Rated. I encourage you, if you're interested, on Amazon worldwide. And if you are easily offended, don't waste your time. It is my statement to prevent a global Holocaust. It is not an alarmist belief. It is my attempt to prevent a global ethnic cleansing of freedom-loving men and women based upon the rise of global authoritarianism, global communism, and the tyranny and the evil of dictatorship that we see most specifically in China and in Burma, in Russia. Just take for an aside, I don't know about you, I was absolutely outraged by what happened in Hong Kong. Virtually unspoken. Nothing really was said. And yet, a precious, sovereign country, city, region obliterated by the dictator Xi Jinping and his gulag, cyborgian, totalitarian dolts. What's to prevent that from happening globally? This book is an expression of my attempt to confront this new wave of authoritarianism and dictatorship that is so easily being mimetified, brought into the mind of good people worldwide, so that the next thing you know, intellectual, good people in Germany, pre-rise of the Third Reich, are burning books in the city square of Berlin along with 33 other cities. Oh, how could that ever happen in Vancouver? Oh, how could that ever happen in Los Angeles? Oh, how could that ever happen at my bookstore? How could that ever happen? And that's exactly what happened. The burnings were one thing. Soon thereafter, they went to every bookstore, every library, every publisher that kept a book that was deemed blacklisted by the white supremacist totalitarian evil government that still wasn't into the extermination phase of the Jews and the deplorables. They burned all those books. You don't need to burn right now. You just need to go switch, and it's digitally eradicated from the collective mind of the people. I have no doubt that the book that I just wrote will be deplatformed and it will go into the rabbit hole, and it never existed. Alan Clements, vilified, hated, absolutely should be canceled permanently from all social media. You just cannot say the things that you've said in your book. Well, if that be the case, I'll conclude with this for the last quarter of the talk. The people of Burma today, the freedom-loving boys and girls, nuns and monks, the civil servants, the medics, the teachers, they are basically saying no to dictatorship. They're saying no to tyranny. They're saying no to totalitarian. We refuse to participate in your intimidation. It's called freedom fighting back. And that's what we're called to do today, back on May 10th, 1933. Imagine, rather than it being telecast nationwide in Germany, imagine if there wasn't musicians and singers celebrating the burning. Imagine those people who said, no, absolutely against our conscience, against our will. I refuse to participate. We will speak up. Screw your vaccine passport. Screw your pornography and your weaponization of information. Dr. Fauci, you're a con man. Let's make it clear, Mr. CNN, BBC, Washington Post. Let's see exactly and expose the factual involvement of your time and money resources into the Wuhan bioweapons lab in Wuhan. How is it that you've had so much involvement in the very lab that it seems that this virus came from? What a coincidence. This is absolutely a global sham, and you are held out as the savior of a pandemic? Tracing your lies. As Dr. Navarro yesterday called you a sociopath, you are a bona fide sociopath, Mr. Fauci. And we have global authoritarianism and evil and propaganda infiltrating our democratic countries now en masse, being supported by the oligarchs in Wall Street and in Silicon Valley, and in many ways, even in our own White House and Capitol building. The meme of dictatorship is running rampant. The warning signs are here. I think good people, musicians and artists, writers and singers, hip hop, rap, death metal, actors who really get it, that freedom is more important, as it's been said by Daw Aung San, than fear. We refuse your cancellation. We will cancel your cancellation. We are rising up, and that's what I'm encouraging people here to do. Burma is under siege, and I pray the UN Security Council acts appropriately and puts the right to protect principle into conscious effect immediately, and we see peacekeeping forces in Burma. But I say, let's take inspiration from the people in China who are being oppressed by Xi Jinping. Let's take inspiration from the Tibetans who are continued to being persecuted in Tibet. Let's take inspiration from all people everywhere who cannot speak for themselves, who are rising up against tyranny and authoritarianism in every country in the world. Let's bond in solidarity together and refuse to participate in cancellation, in lies, in being demeaned and vilified and hated. Let's rise up in our art, in our literature, in our lives, in our activism. Let's shock the powers that be with our stealth willingness to not participate in their tyranny. Freedom. A closing remark about freedom. I was watching a video the other day by a gentleman, an older man, a Jewish man, who survived the Holocaust and his internment in Auschwitz. He said it was a situation that there was no hope, the darkest of the dark, the bleakest of the bleak. I'm not going to go into the graphic details of that circumstance. Let us use our own research, but we know horror upon horror. The lesson I learned, he said, was on the unthinkable value of freedom. He said, even if you are one and you have one other, I could not encourage you enough. I played this over and over. I could not encourage you enough to talk with her, talk with him about freedom. How do you feel freedom? How do you practice freedom? How do you know freedom in your life, in your heart? How can you expand freedom? What are the ways in which you compromise freedom? How do you compromise your thought, your conscience? How do you subjugate yourself? How do you conform to a false identity? How do you live according to a perverted picture, a mirror based on conditions of authority and tyranny? How do you make yourself wrong? How do you empower shame and fear? What are the ways in which you persecute yourself? How do you compromise your freedom? Talk about freedom, he said. Talk about freedom and begin to talk about the importance of having the courage to care for another person's freedom. Your freedom and their freedom, as I conclude here. We're all inseparable in this oxygen of freedom, And right now, I feel the warning signs are clear. We're in a global pandemic, both of a virus and of a meme, a mental meme of totalitarianism, of fear and greed and persecution. And in Burma, the most extreme expression. I dare you to dream, and there's a bullet hole through your head. In Nazi Germany, they gassed them en masse. In Rwanda, they butchered them. Let us break free of whatever mental and emotional confinements that we have, social, religious, political. Break ranks. Rise up in unity. Let us breathe the oxygen of freedom, and let us put our hands together. Let us create art. Let us create literature. Let us sing. Let us dance. Let us do everything possible when we're alone, wherever we are, together. Make love, radiate, elevate, experience, expand, whatever it is, even if we're shot in the process of our music, like the boys and girls in Burma are today. Let us not cower to these cowards. Let us rise up in freedom, take it higher, and let's keep freedom alive for the children, the butterflies, the birds, and the future of life. And if you're interested in my expression of it, I spent 7 months crying, shocking, diving, meditating, psychedelicizing, catharting, feeling in this very room in the house of Rocky, my friend who made the film Rocky. A book called Extinction, X-Rated. It's on Amazon. I'll see you tomorrow in this ongoing series of talks exploring authoritarianism and freedom, the two most important things that I feel denote good and evil, right and wrong. Liberty versus dictatorship. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. May I encourage you, please share this video and let us all do something to keep freedom alive. From my heart to yours. See you tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you.